Hello, good evening, good afternoon, depending on the time you get to watch this video. Welcome to another video on philosophical challenging ideas that I think everyone should know. Today, I want us to learn about biology. And we want to learn biology from a mathematical perspective, then from a philosophical perspective. Let's see what we can learn about reality using those three interrelated, intertwined aspects of knowledge. I want us to learn about human development from the point of fertilization to 9 months at birth. What the different stages and the different development, what can mathematics tell us about what's happening, and what can we learn philosophically from what's going on in these different stages of development. In human development, it starts off from a single cell. Then it develops all the way to 9 months. At every moment, something is changing. A cell divides, structure forms, system develop. This thing to happen sometimes slowly, sometimes fast. It's not a jump. It's a continuous process. And to understand this continuous process, mathematics can help us. Mathematics gives us a tool called calculus. Calculus is the mathematics for small changes, especially a very, very small. It can help us to try and determine what's happening at each stage. And in calculus, there are two parts or two concepts in calculus that are really important. If we understand those two concepts, then you can say you understand calculus. And these concepts are 1, derivative, 2, integral. We'll start off with derivative. In derivative helps us to answer the following question. How fast is something changing right now at this instant? If we are traveling from Nairobi to Naivasha, let's say you drive there, Nairobi to Naivasha, let's assume it's 100 kilometers, and you drive there in 2 hours. We could say that you've driven at an average speed of 50 kilometers per hour. But you did not drive the whole distance at a constant speed of 50 kilometers per hour. There's times when you went at 80, sometimes at 120, sometimes at 40. And so what we have there is an average. But what if someone wants to know what speed were you going at a specific position in that distance? So for example, at what speed were you moving at Kijabe? What can help us to get that instant? That's where calculus comes in, especially the aspect of calculus called derivative, which is interesting. How fast is something moving at that instant? So let us imagine at time t0 during fertilization, when the egg meets the sperm, there is a single cell formed. A short time later, there will be 2 cells, then 4 cells, then 8. And that multiplication keeps happening. The number of cells keeps increasing. But it does not happen at a constant rate. Sometimes the change is rapid, sometimes it's slow. Sometimes different parts develop, sometimes different parts develop at different speed. So we can see that there's change, but that change is not happening uniformly. But we need to understand what's happening at a certain time. So we can ask, what at this exact moment, how fast is the development happening? And when we do that, we are actually asking the derivative question. We're not interested in the total change. We're not interested in the average change, but the instantaneous rate of change. And that is the place for mathematics called derivative. Derivative is not only confined to mathematics. It's useful in physics. It helps us to understand the rate change of a position. It's also useful in economics. It can help us in marginal cost to find the rate change of cost. In biology, it can help us to understand the growth rates as described by a system in terms of how it evolves. The derivative, therefore, is about what's happening right now. And that is one aspect of calculating on what's happening in development. The other aspect that mathematics can help us is called the integration or integral. When these small changes that were happening, when they accumulate, we have a different question. Now, we don't ask how fast is something changing or how fast is the change happening. Instead, we ask, what has all this change added up to? That's what now we are interested in. And that leads us to the integral. An integral measures the total accumulation. From time t0 to 9 months, development never stops. Tiny changes happen, moment by moment, and they build on each other. You don't see isolated changes of something jumping from one thing to the other. You only see small accumulation. So if you're observing the development of a human being from the point when the sperm meets the egg, you do not see an instantaneous jump. All you see is a slow process that sometimes is fast, sometimes very slow, but it's continuous, happening together, happening in a way that one feeds into the other with no clear demarcation. Therefore, if derivative tells us how fast something is happening right now, integral tells us what all that development has produced over time, or what the accumulation has led to. One breaks change into pieces, the other builds the pieces back together. This is the core of calculus. It tells us that reality is not static, it's continuous. Reality is a continuous change, and you can see it in its smallest minute, and you can also see it in its accumulation. And now, in terms of understanding biology from mathematics, this is where the mathematics ends, and then we move into philosophy. And philosophy begins by asking the question, from this calculus changes, the derivative and integral, how do we understand what we are observing? And this question in philosophy falls in the category of philosophy called epistemology. Epistemology is interested in knowledge. It's a theory of knowledge. It helps us to understand what we know and what are the limits of what we can know. So from epistemological point of view, calculus highlights something important, that development is continuous. Each moment grows out of the previous one. Our knowledge of development, therefore, is structured around continuity. But then comes a different question after this epistemological question. And this question is not interested about what's happening, but it's about what does this really mean? So this change in cells that's developing and is growing out of the other slowly, continuously. What does this really mean? And maybe we can take even that question further and ask, why does this matter? And when we ask this question of why does this matter, it's especially why does it matter to human beings? And that question now in philosophy belongs to the area called ethics. Ethics is interested in human behavior. It's interested in setting the principles that should guide how human beings behave towards each other and how they organize society so that each individual can realize their potential. Now, if development is continuous, if there are no obvious sharp boundaries, where do we draw the distinction in human development from fertilization to the time of birth? Where do we say something has fundamentally changed? Is it at time t0 when the egg meets the sperm? Is it after 5 days? Is it